Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to LASER, Leonardo Art and Science Evening Rendezvous, CYLAND. Today's discussion, art collecting and digital art. The Leonardo LASER are programs of international gathering that bring together scientists, artists for informal conversation and with the wider public. The mission of LASER is to encourage the contribution to the cultural environment of the region by fostering interdisciplinary dialogue and opportunities for community building. Digital computer art, software, and multimedia art forms have been created for many years and entered the mainstream. And gradually, museums and private collectors are beginning to accession works of digital media into their art collection. Please join today the panelists, digital mixed media artist, curator, and art collector Anne Spalter, and art collector Leonid Frants, as they share their passion and their history about collecting. From paintings to digital media to NFTs, focusing on the role of technology in creative process and actually addressing the issues of collecting and curating those dynamic, vulnerable, hybrid medias and techniques that relies on digital technology in creative and display processes. Our first speaker today is Anne Spalter. She is a digital mixed media artist and academic pioneer who founded art programs at Brown University and Rhode Island School of Visual Arts in the 90s. She is the author of the Computer Visual Arts in 1999. Her own works are in permanent collection in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London and School of Design Museum in Provenance. She is also known for her large-scale installation, including the commission work in 2016 by MTA for her work New York Dreaming for New York Subway Station and Fulton Station. The Anne and Michael Spalter collection, the Spalter Digital, is one of the world's largest collection, comprising more than 500 works from the early digital art. And how did you came into the field of digital art? And why did you stay? What was your inspiration behind the Spalter Digital Collection? Tell us about yourself, your creative interest in the art collection. Anne?
Thank you so much, Natalia. It's an honor to be here and to be addressing this very international audience in so many different time zones. And I have been in this field forever now, both as an artist and a collector. And it's been really exciting and wonderful. I'm going to show some slides and tell you a bit about my journey as an artist and a collector, because it's been very interwoven with those two hats. So let me share my screen. This laser talk. And I think the experience can be summed up as a roller coaster experience, where every few years both as an artist and a collector, I feel that now everyone understands how fantastic and important digital art is, and it's going to be accepted and shown in museums everywhere, and everyone finally understands it. And then we sort of two steps forward and one step backward, and I start hearing from people again the same question: is it really art, or did the computer make this for you? And I feel like I'm back at square one. But I do think there's progress, but the experience is emotional. It's like you're up, you're down, you keep thinking you're getting somewhere, but maybe you're just like hanging upside down. So I began doing this quite a while ago now. In the 1990s, I had started out as an undergraduate in the painting program at the Rhode Island School of Design, and I really didn't like computers, didn't think they should be involved in the arts, thought all art should be a physical media that you could use with your hands and interact with. So I kind of understand where people are coming from when they initially say, what are you doing with the computer? Because I did start out as a computer phobe, but after spending some time in a regular job in banking and falling in love with the computer and starting to use it in my artwork, I had come back to graduate school at the Rhode Island School of Design and really wanted to use the computer in my work, and met with all this hostility about it. I actually had a visiting critic from New York come and refuse to look at my work. Not because they thought it was bad, they didn't even see it. They just said they didn't want to look at it because I used the computer. And it made me aware of this perception that if it was involved, there was something wrong, that it was usurping some sort of creative role that was supposed to be the artist's. And I began to experiment. And at that time I had purchased a printer, which was incredibly exciting to own your own laser printer. And I forced a piece of BFK paper through it, which is beautiful printing paper. And I put it up in a critique and I said I had made an etching. And I got a really great response on it. And later when I disclosed that it was actually a computer print, suddenly the reaction changed. And it just made me aware of how the perception was based on psychological factors more than what the artwork looked like. And that a lot of introducing people to digital art and understanding it had to do with these perceptions, and where the final piece ended up on the sort of analog digital back and forth that many artists go through. Digital artwork, you don't look at the file, you know, you're always seeing it on a screen or printed out. If it emerges in some sort of analog format, it's often much more acceptable in the digital art world. Whereas if it's some more digital thing, it's not. And that's very interesting to me. I did a lot of experimentation with printmaking because that was more acceptable, even though it was digital. I really wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to take a class and there weren't any, and I was asked to teach one. I ended up teaching a class and writing a book to have material for my course and put everything I knew together in one place. It took over 5 years, and had everything that was in my brain at the time came out in this book. There were some wonderful materials that I did use in my course, including the book by Herbert Franke, who sadly passed away just recently, and this book, Digital Visions by Cynthia Goodman, who I had the wonderful opportunity to meet recently in Washington, DC at the Archive of American Art, the Smithsonian, and got her to sign it for me. When I was writing this book, Michael Spalter was forced to learn about computer art because this took over my life. And he was an art history major. And he said, you know, these computer artists, they're like the Impressionists. Nobody likes them. The Academy hates them, but their artwork is beautiful. They have decades of practice and bodies of work, and we should support them. And we got to know all these wonderful artists and started collecting. And that collection has grown and grown. It's all online at spalterdigital.com. And we've become real proselytizers of early digital artwork. So we wanted to make the work available for curators and students and everyone to understand this history of early digital art and learn about it and kind of spread the word. And there's now over 1,000 pieces, and we've lent work to museums all over the world, including MoMA. And this is one of our favorite artists, Vera Molnar, who is now 98 and is finally getting the recognition that she's deserved all along, and having work all over, including a solo show right now up at the UC Irvine Bell Center for Art and Technology. Our first artwork, we had to decide whether to buy artwork or a sofa, but we made the right decision. This wonderful work by Harold Rosenblum of a crab. He was a sculptor who started working with Photoshop. And the collection has all kinds of things in it, from very early work that's not even digital, analog oscilloscope work photographed right off the screen, to repurposed bomb sighting machines, this custom-made drawing machine by Desmond Paul Henry, to plotter works, which make up the bulk of the collection, because that's how works were generated in the 60s and 70s for the most part, generative artwork. Some of these are very large. These multi-layer works by Jean-Pierre Hébert took sometimes 48 hours to plot. He had to stay awake to change the pens. And if something went wrong in hour 36, he had to start over. So physically demanding works, as well as, intellectually and aesthetically, to impact printers, the dot matrix printer, for those of us old enough to remember, to silk screens, and even more contemporary works, software like augmented reality. But these are harder to archive and maintain for a private collection. So we tend to have things that are more archival. The plotter works are India ink on paper. So that's simpler. David Hockney, who's experimented with technology all along, has some fantastic iPad drawings that are large prints and some conceptual pieces as well. And a few 3D printing works and digital video. Recently, I started collecting NFTs, especially generative on-chain ones, because those seem to me to be direct ancestry, descendants of early digital artwork, because they're generative, but it was a new form, sort of long form digital artwork, generative artwork. So I'm very interested in that as well. I'm going to wrap up with that so that there's time for the other presentations and questions, but that's just a brief overview, and look forward to answering questions about all of that after the other presentations. If my mouse comes back, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Anne.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker is Leonid Frants. Leonid Frants received his PhD in computer science from Stanford University. In 2004, he founded One Market Data, one of the leading providers of software and data for the financial industry, including OneTick, a comprehensive suite for the time series data management and real-time analytical event processing. The Leonid and Anna Frants family collection focuses primarily on St. Petersburg art, and over the time, the Frants family collection grew to include numerous works of the first half of the 20th century, works from post-war period, including works by many nonconformist as well as contemporary artists. In addition to paintings and works on paper, the collection also features installations, new media, sculptures, even mosaics and glassworks. The collection consists of around 3,000 artworks and covers the extended period of time from the 1920s till nowadays, and include a wide range of artistic styles and media. This makes it an invaluable resource for studying Leningrad and St. Petersburg art for the past 100 years. And currently, the exhibition ID, Art and Technology from the Kolodzei Art Foundation and Frants Family Collection is on view at Tmora in Minneapolis, Minnesota until August 14 of this year. Leonid, what was the inspiration behind the Frants Family Collection? Please tell us about yourself and the major trends and the history for your art collection. Leonid.
Thanks. Yes, in our case, I don't think it was really a particular inspiration behind it. It was just a general ability to appreciate certain beautiful, let's call them objects, which give you joy. And no more than that. Anna has been in art for a long time. I really only got closely involved maybe about 20, 25 years ago. So not that long, but it all comes down to being able to appreciate the aesthetic component to it. It's actually interesting. Maybe it's because of my background, or maybe because I look at it a little bit more generally. To me, the questions discussed today in this talk, they don't really sound that that new. To me, art has always been art, And for most part, the digital form of it is just another technique. So as Anne correctly pointed out, there is a great psychological barrier for many people to accept it. But what's strange is that it has been done so many times before that it's strange that we still have that inability to say, okay, well, we moved from basically two-dimensional art and sculpture to objects, to conceptual, to whatever else. And it's been done so many times to Namjoon Paik, to that it's still a barrier, an obstacle to many people to say, okay, well, why art cannot be made of these different materials, right? It's it has to be psychological. But to me, again, maybe it's because of my late entry, this has not even been noticed by me really. Okay, it's another object. It's just a different tool that has been used to make this object. It hasn't been a brush or paint or marble or whatever. But ultimately, the way you interact, most people interact with this kind of art is still visually and audially. So it's still, either it's aesthetically pleasing to you or not. Either you see some great statement, be it an aesthetic statement, political statement, cultural statement in it, or you do not. There is no difference whether it's made of paint or coded in zeros and ones and then somehow transformed into something else. If it's made on a computer, what does it matter? Somebody had to program the computer and somebody had to use that program to build the work of art. Again, how is it different from using a paintbrush? So to me, it's the question. It's really more an observation on a state of understanding among people. It's not the question itself is not that fascinating because I don't see a huge difference between, for example, this work of art here. Ultimately, the way that it interacts with me, still I'm looking at it, and either I like the way it moves or I don't like the way it moves, and it touches something in me, it doesn't. And that's it, versus this one, which is really as traditional as it gets, even though it's clearly like 20th century art, but still. So it's probably a little bit different because particularly when you get to, let's say, when you get into conceptual art, when it's not hard physical object. And if you look at it aesthetically, you have to look at it from a point of view of aesthetics in a concept, in an idea. So maybe it's a bit different when it comes to digital art that, yes, some people who do have special education, specifically in some instances, maybe computer science education, maybe they can see a little bit more because they just understand, they may understand certain beauty, they can see certain beauty of a program itself. Not of what the artist did with the program, but maybe the tools that was given to the artist. Ultimately, in many cases, it's a program. It's a result of somebody's programming. And maybe we could see that certain things have been written more beautifully or less beautifully, but still it's an intermediate step. It doesn't usually come out in the end, in the final product. And that difference would still be minor. For most part, again, when we look at things like that, we're still observing the end product. So, as much as I would like to talk about digital art, to me, it's just a natural evolution. As time goes on and more tools become available to express ourselves, it's just natural that people will be using everything that they have at their disposal. I think the real explosion really happened probably in the early 20th century, right? Probably starting from Duchamp. And that's when the explosion in techniques really took place. Right now, it's just, I think the step is a little bit smaller. So the real issue is a psychological issue. And maybe one of the explanations is that there's a certain aversion, I guess, in humans to robots doing things. There is some association. It has been a case when, for the first time, a computer program could beat a human in chess. It's just, we don't want that to happen for whatever psychological reasons. And hence we try to find all kinds of reasons why it's not fair. Well, in this case, we would subconsciously try to find reasons why it's not art. They're not logical reasons. That's we just don't want it to happen. We think that we possess some certain skills which machines do not. Well, they do not, but at some point they possess more and more. And at some point the works of art will be created even without our assistance also. I mean, with the initial assistance, somebody has to program original ideas. But then it's quite possible that even without our interference, a computer program could generate a piece of art, which is just as interesting as anything generated by humans. So I don't know. I think the presentation, unlike Anne, I don't really have a slide presentation, but it is fairly informative because in this presentation there are some not fairly randomly selected work from our collection. And again, you can see, you look at one of them, which is as traditional as it gets, and then you look at something like this. Well, it's not computer generated, but it's obviously contemporary, and it has mechanical element, and it has some of them have a programmed element, and it might not reflect in the final image. The image may not be directly computer generated, but it still has a computer element or a robotic element in it. And you can look at them, okay, that's a work of art, and that's a work of art, and that's a work of art. And here's an object that used to be a mechanical or an electrical object, but it's not anymore. Here's the video. So I don't know. Yes, it's interesting, but I think it's just a temporary phase. Give it another 10, 15, 20 years, and particularly new generation that grows up already observing it and kind of taking it as kind of as is. This is part of their lives. So they won't even be asking that question. Was it generated by using a particular program or by somebody holding a brush or a chisel? So anyway, I can probably go on for a long time, but that's probably a summary of my view on art collecting. You ultimately collect the things which you like, or some people might collect for investment purposes. Some people may collect because of their neurosis and they just need to collect. But those reasons are the same. It's nothing to do with whether it's digital or physical. I just realized actually, as Anne was speaking, there were a few works which I didn't even realize. I didn't even think of them as digital. When we gave some works for this presentation to be compiled, and as Anne was speaking, I pulled them up. What was interesting to me is that indeed it wasn't even a thought. It was just, okay, it looks good. Let's get it. Okay, so let me share my screen. This is a contemporary Russian artist from Moscow. It's not only printed graphics, but it's actually generated graphics. And they're not lithographs. They're just exactly as Anne was saying. He designed them on a printer. He never. The only time that they take a physical form is when they're printed. Obviously, the guy found his own kind of funny way of expressing his visual ideas. These somewhat contemporary, somewhat 1970s, somewhat Soviet images using a completely new techniques. Well, I guess they're not new. People have been using computers to print things, but very expressive works, as far as I'm concerned, just literally never gave it a thought before. It just occurred to me only as Anne was speaking how, hold on, these are actually printed works. So anyway, that's just a side slideshow, but not much difference to me between this and a lithograph or a painting. Of course, you use a different technique to achieve different effects. Yes, that's about it.
Yes, thank you, Leonid. Now we'll come to our discussion. Thank you so much for your presentation. And first, we'll touch a little bit on the criteria aspect of digital art. Personally, I have spent my whole life immersed in art. And since I remember myself, I was surrounded by artworks, which my mother, Tatiana Kolodzei, collected for over 50 years. And today, the Kolodzei collection of Eastern European art consists of more than 7,000 objects, including paintings, works on paper, sculpture, digital art, installation by more than 300 artists from Eastern Europe. For us, it was a very important, the major criteria we used was originality and talent and the quality of the work. The particular movement the artist belonged to was of less important. The digital artworks are collected using many criteria, and as we mentioned before, its uniqueness, originality, professional quality, aesthetic quality, like composition, color tones, conceptual idea behind it, selection or application of the materials, the complexity and level of the digital technology. Leonid, I'll start with you. As a collector, you did mention a little bit about this in your talk, in your presentation, but as a collector of both paintings and digital media, what are your main criteria for collecting digital art? How these criteria differ or similar for the paintings and works on paper and digital art?
Yes, in my case, literally, there is no difference. Since we collect purely for self-enjoyment, and the criteria is whether it's aesthetically or whatever that means aesthetically in many domains. It could be in a visual domain, in an audio domain, could be in a conceptual domain, but ultimately whether aesthetically it's pleasing or not. So it's exactly the same criteria for us. There's just something in the work that makes you like it, and that's it.
Yeah. And now for you, because you're wearing many hats as an artist, curator, and art collector. So what do you think your main criteria for digital art?
Yep, I completely agree that if we don't love it, we don't collect it. And I know people do collect art as an investment, but I think that you never know if art's going to be worth more or less in the future. So I highly recommend for people collecting art, if you don't enjoy it, don't collect it. Because if you collect something that you love, then in the very worst case scenario, you have something beautiful to look at on your wall. So, you know, it's a no-lose proposition that way. And there's nothing sadder, I think, than buying something and then you hang it up and you don't like it and it sort of moves around in your house and ends up in the basement or somewhere in storage. And maybe because I'm an artist as well, like that's physically painful for me. So that's definitely the first criteria, that we have to love the piece aesthetically. And then the collection is focused on early digital art or something directly related to that. So it also has to be within that, you know, conceptual window as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll continue with you. We discussed that nowadays the digital medium is extremely hybrid. And for the past few years, you have been involved in working with the crypto art and NFT, including the curating exhibition, NFT Now. What are the major issues which crypto space and NFT introduces into the archiving, into the collecting methods? What is the biggest challenges today? And what effect the NFT made on the art market and collecting?
The whole NFT blockchain, you know, crypto art phenomenon has been fantastic for digital artwork. It's really helped bring it to the attention of many people who never thought about digital artwork before. And it's introduced a whole new group of collectors to collecting art. So I think it's been a wonderful contribution to the art world. It's, from our perspective, has been great for generative artwork, which before was a sort of niche thing that people and technical and interested in digital art knew about, but in general, people weren't that interested in. And now, because of the huge prices that some of the early, especially art blocks drops commanded, like Ringers and Fidenzas, there has been this huge interest in generative artwork. And that translated into interest in the pioneering artists and the work that they did, like Farah Molnar and Manfred Moore and Frieder Naki, and has helped tie together that art history to things going on now. And it's wonderful to see that younger artists creating this generative artwork and who have made money in this field are now collecting those older artists as well. So it's a wonderful, I think, circle of success for that type of artwork.
Yes, thank you very much. And now, Leonid, putting aside the NFT, we spoke about the hybrid medium of digital art, like hybrid in connection to the digital and kinetic, digital and painting, digital and prints. And what are your thoughts on this new formats for digital media? Besides NFTs.
At the fear of sounding boring, as far as I'm concerned, they just give you a new form, new way to express yourself. It's all happened before many times, so there is no significant difference for me. It's not like we haven't had hybrid art before. I mean, we had painted sculpture since Greek times, right? I mean, it's now that we have all those Aphrodites that are completely white. They haven't always been white. In antiquity, they had color. Well, that's already hybrid. You take a sculpture, what is it, a sculpture or not, and then you paint it. You're talking about contemporary sculpture. You turn it, you paint it, it's been like that forever. So how is that not hybrid? Okay, so then you attach a stick to a piece of marble and it becomes an object. I don't know, it's always been hybrid. It's to me, it's a non-issue, really.
Now we're switching to slightly different hybrid collaboration. And what are your thoughts on ideal collaboration between the artist and art collectors in terms of displaying, maybe installation process, commissioning digital art? What are your thoughts on this?
I think that NFTs have made a much tighter connection between collectors and artists. It's much easier to communicate directly as an artist with my collectors and as a collector with the artists that I'm collecting. So I think that's a big plus for both sides. There are a lot of challenges with displaying NFTs. You know, on the one side, it's great because you could see your collection wherever you go. You can bring them up on your phone or your laptop and show them to everyone. And that's wonderful. But on the other hand, you can't, see them on the wall and they don't have this tangibility to them. I know some collectors have fantastic displays in 3D worlds like CryptoVoxels or with programs like oncyber.io. And that's nice to sort of be able to walk around or navigate on your screen and see collections and different curations of their collections. There are some screens where you can show NFTs that are in your wallet, that connects directly to a screen and you can show things, or you can show on an infinite objects little screen, one NFT at a time gets sort of burned into the screen. And those are very beautiful, but there's only one at a time. To me, there's no kind of ideal one way to show an NFT collection yet. I've seen fantastically beautiful screens at Gallery Vellum, LA. They had these amazing canvas screens or canvas, I don't even know what the company was, little LED squares made into these really beautiful screens, very high resolution, no edges, beautiful, but fantastically expensive as well. I think there's a range of display options, but no one is sort of perfect for showing all of your NFTs. So it's an open area, and I think more companies will get in there and offer different display devices for people to use.
Leonid, and what are your thoughts on this kind of ideal collaboration between the artist and collector in displaying or like installation process or commissioning the works?
I think it's just a natural evolving process. I think I agree. I don't know that much about NFTs other than how they work. So it does seem that they have played a very positive role in recognition, acceptance of digital art. I'm a little bit maybe confused or maybe ambiguous about them, because to me the art itself, NFT itself is not the art. That's not what you're really showing, right? It certainly can identify legal aspects aside because they're not clear at all. Does it really give you attention? But it identifies the object of art that you own, and you can show it, but the NFT itself is not the object of art. It's like a description. It may as well be linked. It's probably much more secure description and something to which financial value can be assigned kind of more safely from a point of view of people who do it, who do look at it as an investment, as in something valuable, which certainly make it much more possible. But so to me, it's not really the NFT itself. It's just it's more like a vehicle to help make other art acceptable, because I guess you can assign an NFT to just a regular object, a sculpture as well. Okay, yeah, it's a unique sculpture. Sculpture by definition is non-fungible because you can, you will never make a copy. Yes, you could assign it to print. So it's all very useful, but I think we still should separate the NFT. So of course, at some point, somebody can make an art piece, made entirely of NFTs. But NFT has to have some kind of a visual expression then, maybe some series of zeros and ones, or or like a, it's a difference between a link and the actual image work of art. But yeah, I don't think there is any denial that it's playing a very significant role. Again, I think people who do it purely for investment purposes, though, probably should be a bit careful. It's completely new legal ground. I mean, it's like virtual currencies. Everybody hopes that in the end they'll become completely widely accepted, and most likely they will. It's just that these are early days. But ultimately, to me, I still make a clear differentiation until they start making art with NFTs themselves, which is a perfectly fine idea as far as I'm concerned. As long as you can represent an NFT somehow. Until then, those are two different aspects to me. There is art and there is an identification mechanism and ownership mechanism.
Yeah. Thank you, Leonid. And in your actually show an NFT now, you try kind of to differentiate the actual art making process of NFTs and NFT as a secure document.
Yeah, so Leonid is right that usually the token is sort of a certificate of authenticity, and then there's a pointer to an image file that's actually stored separately and not on the blockchain. But some NFTs are stored entirely on the blockchain. So the generative art NFTs that we largely collect, like the ones on art blocks, the whole thing is on the blockchain. So actually the token is the artwork. So sometimes it is all actually one thing. It depends on the piece.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what are your predictions for the future of art and tech? Will art industry continue to be hesitant sometimes, or to adopt new technologies, or has it been hurdle been passed? What are your thoughts?
So recently I've been using all these cool new AI tools, artificial intelligence, And I think people are just going to be completely blown away if you haven't seen what's going on in the world of AI with things like DALL-E and Midjourney and GPT-3 tools, which are the text writing tools. It's truly mind-blowing. So I think some of the concerns which were very misplaced with early generative art of the computer actually doing some creative task for the artist are actually now legitimate issues with AI, where the computer is really kind of like a partner with you in the studio doing truly amazing things on its own, and that there's going to be a lot of very interesting issues to discuss. You have to do a whole nother panel on that.
Yes.
But I think people don't even like yet grasp what is happening in this whole field of AI. It's very fun, but it's also a little bit creepy.
And Leonid, and what are your thoughts on the future of art and technology?
Oh, I think it's infinite. I do actually. I haven't seen the programs where machine learning has been applied to art yet, but just by looking at what's happening in machine learning right now, in general, and how much more, again, using the same word, how much more general the machine learning algorithms have become. So it's no longer just, okay, can we teach a program to play chess? It's can we teach a program pretty much to understand any activity that, you know, human or maybe like non-human does, just by looking at kind of at the output, trying to understand what it by itself. Yeah, the implications are going to be huge. There is, you know, no doubt in my mind. And I don't even have to have seen anything yet. I mean, Anne has mentioned 3 particular, I guess, machine learning programs, algorithms already used for it. I don't even know. I don't know what they are, but you know, I have no doubt that that's a direction, or you know, a very important direction of evolution. And it's not too far in the future. It's I think the way machine learning is growing now, unlike like 30 years ago where everybody was predicting, oh, AI is going to solve everything in 2 years and 5 years, and they've been doing it since 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. You know, finally AI did manage to do a few things, but still kind of pales in comparison to what a human brain can do. Now it seems to be evolving, developing at a much faster speed. It still will take a long time. It's not tomorrow, but it's certainly much more tangible, it seems. And yeah, the impact of art is just, yeah, it's going to be huge.
So there is a great future for the art and tech. So we just need to watch for the new works.
Yeah,
and
there is a great path and a great future.
What do you think the new generation of art collectors will change buying trends or patterns, and how they will engage in the art world? What do you think? What do you think the new generation will bring into art collecting?
Is a question to Anne?
I mean, I think there's an interesting new, I don't know, generation, but a new group of art collectors that have come in through cryptocurrency. And there's still sort of largely non-overlapping kind of Venn diagram circles of collectors who made money in cryptocurrency, started buying NFTs, I think because there's nothing to buy with cryptocurrency. And my thesis is they started buying them just as store of value or investment, didn't really know that much about art, and became, you know, involved. They began to love some of them. They didn't want to sell them because it's artwork. You know, you begin to love the things and you meet the artists and you start learning about them and you start learning about art. And a lot of these people have become true art lovers and true art collectors, and they are smart people to begin with. And, you know, you can learn about art, anyone can learn about art. And now there's a whole group of really fanatical art collectors who just in the past, you know, 5 years have come way up this learning curve, learned about art, and created these really wonderful collections. And I think have brought more people in behind them as well, and shown that you don't have to come from a family of art collectors who have gone to art school or studied art history to enjoy art and start collecting art, and NFTs and the blockchain have made that possible. So I think that's really wonderful. Anyone, and there's all different price points out there. So you don't have to be, buying things at a famous auction house. You can go on, you can be on Tezos, you can buy things for $25 that are really wonderful. So I think there's a great future of that.
Do you think they will branch out to paintings and works on paper as well, to the physical object, tangible objects?
I know some of them have. So I don't know how much it will cross over, but I imagine that it would, because I think, as Leonid said, it's all the same. There's not really a difference between digital art and, sculpture or painting. So I think once you have that interest, that you'll start, looking at other things. I think the traditional art world makes it challenging to buy art. So I think that art world needs to change a little bit to make it easier for more collectors to enter it.
And Leonid, and what are your thoughts on this new generation of art collectors?
Yeah, I think there's overlapping, I would say. It's not like there has been a lack of money in the world before, even new money. Art has not, for a long time, has not necessarily been purchased by old money. So I think that trend we have seen for a long time, and you can kind of claim that during the internet bubble, that suddenly a whole bunch of new millionaires, billionaires appeared, and now they can buy art because they might not be familiar with the galleries, but they have all this money. No, there has always been plenty of money in the world, and the barriers though have changed. It's just that these people, it's a new generation, and who may not have grown up with appreciation of beauty, of aesthetics. This just gives them another way, a more natural way to enter through the area. It's not because they may have a lot of money necessarily, but they're very familiar with virtual objects, with digital objects, with NFTs, blockchains. So to them, they kind of enter the same domain. It's the same plain domain, just through a different door. And then I agree completely. Once you do that, your eye itself, it starts, unless you're just collecting for the sake of collecting, again, it could be a purely like a neurotic activity. But then once you start looking at objects which are more aesthetic, more beautiful, your eye just gets trained by itself. And you become part of that larger kind of collector group. So it will definitely help extend it, but it's a new generation really, which I think it's all been happening for a long time. I'm not sure if the separation, it's not like these people have been completely isolated in their programming and trading of Bitcoin exercises. They walk down the street, they do see architecture, they see contemporary art objects, but it could be a very useful trigger to get into it. Once you do come into possession of your first art object, which maybe you purchased simply because it's a blockchain or it's an NFT, and that's what interests you. Later on, as you start looking at it more and more, you start deriving different kind of pleasure from it. And you just get more involved with the visual world of art in general, not just limiting itself. I think that will be the effect. It's so it's all good for the art,
And if there was one,
someone told me that they received an NFT as a gift, and it was the most expensive present they ever got, because then they started collecting NFTs. It's really fun. So I think once people get into it, it's easy to, it's very addictive, but once you start.
That's a key part. It's as far as the collection aspect is concerned, it's a trigger. How do you get into it first? How do you get a first, second, third piece until you actually experience that enjoyment, not the enjoyment of owning, but enjoyment of look, of the beauty, because most people, I don't know if most, but majority of people, they're not like Anne. Anne is an artist. But I think majority of people are not really, they don't encounter art face to face consciously throughout their lives. It's not that many people, we have a different crowd here in this discussion, but many people never go really to a museum, and whatever object they see in the street, they just absorb them as objects, and whatever, as just part of life, not as special designs or works of art. So yeah, so that will be one of, just another way to increase the number of people who experience art directly, firsthand, enjoy it.
And that's also one of the aims of the laser, to bring more people to the art conversation, to the art and science conversation. And so if there was one thing which you would like the public to take away from today's laser, what will be? What it will be?
Go and buy a piece of art.
And
Yeah, I agree. And trust your own intuition about what you like. But buy something that speaks to you.
thank you, Anne Spalter, and thank you, Leonid Frants, for sharing your thoughts and your passion for art collecting and perspective on art and digital media. And your passion for the digital media will bring us a step closer to recognition that as a major movement of the 21st century, or at least equal to the paintings and sculpture. Thank you, the audience, and thank you, Silent Media Art Lab and the Kolodzei Art Foundation team, and the Leonardo Journal community for fostering and guiding these dialogues on art and technology. So let's continue this conversation. Follow Silent Laser Leonardo Art and Science Evenings Rendezvous on social media. And we'll have next coming up soon on fermentation. So thank you and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.